Finance Minister Arun Jaitley has asked Finance Secretary Hasmukh Adhia to examine the possibility of increasing the government stake in the goods and services network. Currently, remember, the private financial institutions hold around 51% stake in the GSTN. Timsy Jaipuria, who has been tracking that story, joins us now. Timsy, the demand for a greater government shareholding in the GSTN has been a long pending one, hasn't it?
Well, that's right. Finance Minister has written to Finance Secretary Hasmukh Adhia asking him to mull the options to see how soon government can convert GSTN from a private company to a government company. Now, Finance Minister has asked Hasmukh Adhia to see and mull the options to convert GSTN into a government-owned subsidiary, either a 100% government-owned company or a company where majority stake is being held by the government. Now, these two options have been given to the Finance Secretary, and FM has asked Finance Secretary to see that how soon this can be implemented. What we understand from sources is the fact that Finance Secretary is soon going to take stakeholders meeting, take the view of GSTN and other stakeholders before coming out with a formal proposal, which will be then taken forward to the GST Council for a formal nod. Now, the reason cited by Finance Minister to convert GSTN from a private SPV to a government-owned company is that earlier there was a need to give autonomy to GSTN, given the fact that GST was about to be implemented. Then later on, the portal was not stabilized, and now that the portal has been stabilized, even e-way bill has rolled out quite smoothly. So now there is no need to give that flexibility and that autonomy to GSTN, and now the government feels that it's time for GSTN to be converted from an SPV to a government-owned entity. But how soon this will happen is something that we need to wait and watch. Back to you.
Absolutely. Timsy, thank you very much for that. So the government looking to increase stake in the goods and services network. But meanwhile, finance ministers from South Indian states met in Trivandrum today. They discussed their concerns and views on the terms of reference of the 15th Finance Commission. The terms of reference has recommended that instead of the 1971 census, 2011 census be used to calculate population for the allocation of union tax revenue. Now, South Indian states feel that this would adversely affect them. So we caught up with Kerala Finance Minister Thomas Isaac earlier. He told us that they would be drafting a memorandum on the issues that were discussed during today's meeting and mostly presented to the President.
We discussed that the terms of reference, which convinced us. There are many more issues with the TOR, even more graver than the population base here. And we came to the conclusion it's a very sinister move to roll back the recommendation of 14th Finance Commission in terms of 42% of tax to be devolved to the state. Two, if this Finance Commission is allowed to have its way on the basis of the present TOR, there would be unacceptable, stringent conditions on the states. Even tax devolution there could be. Never in the history of India has the tax devolution been subjected to conditionality. So that is another issue. And third, he found all this incentive system for performance unacceptable. And this is, in fact, going back from the recommendation of 14th Finance Commission, which has removed all these performance-based grants except for local government to increase the tax devolution from 32% to 42%.
Time for a very short break, but coming up 4 days before the resolution deadline for Monitor Ispat was to end, lenders approve a resolution plan for the company. More details on the other side. Welcome back to Reporter's Diary. Now, we told you first, and it's now official, with just days to go before the deadline for Monet-Ispat's insolvency resolution was to end on the 14th of April, banks to the company have cleared the resolution plan submitted by the Aeon JSW Steel Consortium for Monet-Ispat, with 98% of the bankers voting in favor of the resolution plan. Now, what is the offer? We understand from sources that Aeon JSW has offered about 2750 crore rupees repayment to the lenders and another 1050 crore rupees as equity infusion into the company, which then amounts to about a 72% haircut that banks led by SBI will have to take on the 10,000 crore rupee debt that the company is sitting on. This was later confirmed by Monet-Ispat in a release to the exchanges that the offer from Aeon JSW has indeed been confirmed and voted on by 98% majority of the committee of creditors. Finally, for approval, now with the go-ahead signal from the bankers, the plan will be submitted to the NCLT before the 14th of April, which, remember, is when the deadline for resolution ends. Now, moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi today flagged off Indian Railway's first electric locomotive from the Madhepura district in Bihar. This electric locomotive has been built by French rail transport company Alstom in Madhepura itself. India, remember, has signed a contract with Alstom for the manufacture of 800 electric locomotives. Ashpreet Sethi caught up with the India head, who said that their company will be delivering close to 500 electric locos to the Indian Railways by 2022.
Our plan with our partner Tata is clearly to complete the full factory by the end of this year and to ramp up the full production. And the production will start by end 2018, early 2019 with the full-fledged delivery. Next year we plan to deliver around 50 locomotives, and from after we will ramp up to 120, 130 locomotives a year. I think globally 2022 is now 3.5 years, 4 years from now. We can expect that we have roughly 500 locomotives running on the Indian network in commercial operations, plus more under manufacturing, of course.
Welcome back, and straight to the big global story then. Chinese President Xi Jinping has promised to open up the Chinese economy further by lowering import tariffs on automotive products and decreasing duties on other products as well. This comes amid rising trade tensions between the US and China. Speaking out at the Boao Forum for Asia, Xi Jinping said that he hopes that developed countries will stop imposing unfair trade restrictions on high-tech products and relax export controls on such trades with China. The Chinese president said that China is committed to openness for a win-win result. CNBC's Martin Sung is standing by to tell us how Chinese investors are reacting to this. But before that, let's listen in to what Xi Jinping had to say at the forum.
China will continue to adhere to its fundamental national policy of opening up and pursue development with its door wide open. I wish to make it clear to you all that China's door of opening up will not be closed and will only open even wider. Manufacturing. We have basically opened up this sector, only with a small number of exceptions on automobiles, ships, and aircraft. Now, these industries are in a position to open up. Going forward, we will ease as soon as possible foreign equity restrictions in these industries, automobiles in particular.
So today we had a bit of carrot and stick from China for the U.S. The stick first, the Chinese filing a complaint at the WTO against America's Section 232 tariffs on steel and aluminum. And the carrot, well, just hours before that, a sweeping speech by the Chinese President Xi Jinping opening up China's economy further to foreign investment, sectors like shipbuilding, sectors like aircraft, and most conspicuously, sectors like autos. Now, President Xi also said he would lower tariffs on U.S. autos imported into China, apparently in direct response to President Trump's tweet just about a day and a bit ago, criticizing trade with China as silly trade and also complaining about excessively high Chinese tariffs on U.S. autos imported into China, saying that both initiatives would happen this year. Now, the question is whether these initiatives are enough and also whether they'll come soon enough to avert or avoid a trade war, the situation escalating. That's the big open question. So far, no response from the Trump administration. Martin Sung, CNBC, Boao, China.
Well, in more global news, Facebook founder and CEO Mark Zuckerberg will head to Capitol Hill to testify before U.S. Congress tonight. He will testify at 11:45 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Remember, Facebook has been under fire after data breach by Cambridge Analytica. CNBC's Julia Borston filed this report on what to expect from Zuckerberg's testimony.
It's certainly a big day for Mark Zuckerberg as he faces senators who've been demanding answers about Facebook's failures, including its lack of privacy safeguards and the outside use of the platform to manipulate elections. Yesterday, he started his rounds on Capitol Hill, meeting with Senators John Thune, Chuck Grassley, and Bill Nelson, who told reporters that the two had a, quote, heart-to-heart, and that he thinks there are going to be, quote, a lot of challenges for Facebook in the future. Just hours from now, Zuckerberg will testify for the first time in front of the Senate Judiciary and Commerce Committees. In prepared remarks released yesterday, Zuckerberg apologizes, explains what went wrong, and outlines Facebook's plans to prevent election interference on the platform in situations like the sale of as many as 87 million users' data to Cambridge Analytica, saying, quote, "It was my mistake and I'm sorry. I started Facebook, I run it, and I'm responsible for what happens here." Zuckerberg will highlight changes the company is making, including safeguarding the platform by limiting the information developers can access, investigating other apps, and building better controls so these situations don't happen again. And when he takes the stand, we can expect senators to press Zuckerberg about whether Facebook is doing enough to prevent scandals similar to Cambridge Analytica, and how many other cases there could be, and whether its users' data is really safe. Zuckerberg is likely to reiterate the company's plans to hire many more people, to have as many as 20,000 by the end of the year, just focused on security and investment in security that will significantly impact profitability.
Well, sticking with this Facebook story now, even as we await Zuckerberg's testimony, over the last few months, several big faces have spoken out against Facebook's policies. Here's a look back at a few of those criticisms.
The idea that fake news on Facebook, of which it's a very small amount of the content, influence the election in any way, I think, is a pretty crazy idea.
I think the tools that have been created today are starting to erode the social fabric of how society works.
When the CEOs won't take responsibility, okay, then I think you have no choice but for the government to come in and go, come on, what's going on?
I think that the management of Facebook right now is committing malpractice.
People don't want to go work for a company like Facebook that people perceive is destroying society.
We need to hear from him, the sooner the better, and I expect him to testify.
I think people have the right to know what it is and where it is and how it's controlled and why it's controlled, and I think it's true for all these data providers.
Well, Mark Zuckerberg, what would you do?
What would I do? I wouldn't be in this situation.
Is he going to behave like an adult as a major corporate leader, or give me this phony baloney? What is it, hoodies and dungarees, and what is that kind of signal sell?
This was a huge breach of trust. People come to Facebook every day, and they depend upon us to protect their data, and I am so sorry.
This was a major breach of trust, and I'm really sorry that this happened.
Well, that testimony is coming up at 11:45 p.m. tonight. But moving on to the big exclusive news break we're bringing to you this hour, stung by Nirav Modi and Mehul Choksi's exit in the PNB fraud case, the government has now stepped up action against defaulters. Exactly what is in the government's mind? Timsy Jaipuriya joins us with details. Timsy, what are you picking up now? What is the government planning to do?
Well, as you rightly mentioned, noting the fact that a lot of defaulters in the recent past have fled the country, the government has recently taken a meeting of an empowered group meeting of all the investigative agencies, which was chaired by Finance Secretary Hasmukh Adhia. In that meeting, government decided that they took a latest round of status check of these NPAs, and they've decided that the investigative agencies have been told to ask banks, RBI and DFS this to give details of people where loans have become NPAs and match the list of defaulters with frequent travelers. Remember, frequent travelers list is maintained by civil aviation, where civil aviation keeps note of a pattern where, say, an ex-person keeps on flying to, for example, to Dubai almost every month. Then he comes under the frequent traveler list. Now, they will tally the list of defaulters with this list of frequent travelers, and the investigation agencies have been told to also check the role of banks. With the increase in number of NPAs, agencies have been asked to submit a status report on banks and bankers to RBI, FinMin and PMO and to this empowered group soon, where they take a status check, they take down the number of NPA cases that they are probing right now, where they will keep on matching these details. Now, the agencies which are involved in this entire operation are IB, MEA, ED, CBI, IT, DRI, SFIO, ROC and EOW, and these investigative agencies have been told to take status check from MEA. For example, like they will check the latest location of these defaulters, the travel details of these defaulters in the last 5 years. They will also see what is the reason that these travelers, these defaulters have cited in visa, whether it is a business travel or a tourist travel. Then also check what is the business interest of these defaulters with those countries where they are frequently traveling, and then seek details from those countries when it comes to the business interest, whether they hold companies there, whether they are paying taxes there or not. And again, to see this move, the entire move is to curb preferred routes of money laundering and curb NPAs. Now, also what a recent example of this, the success of this operation, I must mention here, is that IT department has today undertaken 16 raids at the company called Diamond Power Infra Limited in Baroda. And Amit and Sumit Bhatnagar are the owners who were traveling to both Dubai and Mauritius. They have a loan of about 2,500 crore rupees, which is an NPA, and they had taken it from various banks, including Bank of Baroda, Corporation Bank, Dena.
All right, the government there stepping up action against defaulters. But with that, we're completely timed out on this edition of Reporter's Diary. Thank you very much for watching. Up next is Money, Money, Money.